y'all. This is a Facebook Live recording that we did on gut health. I apologize, we were hoping to have this nice setup where we went back and forth from me talking to the presentation, but it's just the presentation with my narrated audio, but it's still really great, solid information. So please watch this, listen, learn, let it integrate, and then let us know if you have any questions, okay? Thank y'all.
Let me introduce myself. I have Nicole monitoring this, so if the audio isn't working or the video isn't working right, then we'll just have to restart this thing, but I think we're going okay. My name is Paul C. Tarina. I'm a local nutritional therapist and life coach, and we basically just teach people how to feel amazing. And a big part of that incorporates things like gut health, and one of the things that I feel like we do really well as an organization is we boil down complex information into easy to understand presentations and some information that people can take home and use right away. So especially when it comes to gut health and digestion in general, there's so many different rabbit holes that we can go down and so many different intricate levels of information that we can go into. But what we want to do is understand at a practical level how this stuff works, and then have some takeaway information that we can use to start implementing right away to get these things working the way that we want them to. So let me just verify with Nicole that I'm on and that people can see my screen and everything else. Come on, confirm, girl. Can y'all hear? Cool. All right, awesome. So we're going. All right, let me get back over my presentation here. So today we're going to be talking about gut health, and this is why we're talking about this information. So digestive issues are rampant across America and the industrialized world. And from digestive issues, we're talking about everything from acid reflux to constipation, diarrhea, burping, belching. I mean, there's just a lot of things that tie into that. Most people don't understand how digestion is supposed to work, and most people are very confused about what to do for a healthy gut. We all hear about the importance of having a healthy gut and microbiome, but I think from a practical standpoint, it's very difficult for people to actually understand what they need to do. So today, we're going to give you some basic, useful understanding of the digestive system. We're going to give you some take-home practical things that you can start to use right away. We are going to have some supplement recommendations. Some of the supplements we sell out of our office, some of them we recommend getting on Amazon. And basically, this is a presentation sharing all the things that I would personally like to know, or that we would like to know, knowing what I know now. And that includes all this amazing take-home information. So for anyone or everyone that participates and stays with us through about the middle of the presentation, we're going to be doing some drawings for some free essential oils. And then for anyone that sticks around for the full meeting, at the end of this, we're going to give out bonus PDFs that actually summarize everything that we talk about today, including my personal daily protocols that I use for strong digestion and an amazing gut. All right. So a quote from Hippocrates, all disease begins in the gut. That was something that he said over 2,000 years ago. And today we do understand the gut connection to everything health related. So gut health is crucial to overall health. It has an impact on just about every chronic degenerative disease that we see manifest today. Strong digestion, just think about digesting, what digesting really is. Digesting is about breaking down nutrients and assimilating them. So if we have really strong digestion, we should be getting the most out of the food that we eat. We're also minimizing toxins. And then gut health means that we have strong digestion, plus we address gut permeability. We don't want gut permeability. And then we also have a strong and healthy microbiome. So those are some of the things that we're going to touch on today as we go through this. And if you have digestive issues, I think some of what we talk about today is going to clear up a lot of these things for you. So let's first talk about digestion. So digestion is supposed to be a north to south process that starts in the brain and goes all the way through the assimilation of nutrients. And I think a lot of people don't even understand the basics of how this works and how important this is and how crucial it is to strong digestion. So when we see food and think about food and ideally prep our own food, that starts our thinking about it, but that also initiates all kinds of different beneficial processes inside the body. So when I start to think about food and I start to salivate, like right now I could talk about like biting into a juicy piece of steak or biting into a squeeze of lemon, and your saliva glands will start to salivate, and that's an indication that your digestive system is starting to ramp up. So when we prep our own food, we see food, we smell it, then that starts to initiate all kinds of different processes, and then that goes all the way down the line. So I want to talk about each one of these little different pieces so that we can understand what we need to do to have better digestion. So the first part of the process, ideally, if you're making your own food, and ideally that's real food, you're thinking about your food, you're seeing your food, you're smelling your food, and in that process we start to initiate digestive juices. So in the mouth, in our saliva, we have what we call salivary amylase, which is an enzyme designed to break down simple carbohydrates. And so in that initial process, in the chewing, we start to mix that salivary amylase with the food that we're eating in our mouth. And so we mix all that together, and we're already starting to break down our food. And then also in that process, we start to heat up all the different digestive juices down the rest of the tract. So this initial piece of the process is so important. Seeing your food, thinking about your food, preparing your food, and then, honoring that whole salivary amylase and saliva being secreted, and then also making sure that you chew your food really well, because guess what? Your stomach doesn't have teeth, right? So if you chew your food really well, you have this paste that we call a bolus that goes down into the stomach, passes through the cardiac sphincter. The cardiac sphincter is one of the few digestive sphincters, or it's the only digestive sphincter that actually opens up both directions, north and south, so that we can actually vomit up something that's not good for us. But that bolus goes down into the stomach, and then in the stomach we have copious amounts of hydrochloric acid that are secreted, and this is ideal. This is in a healthy person that has strong digestion. Copious amounts of hydrochloric acid that's secreted. And with that hydrochloric acid, the stomach also has to secrete a thick mucosa so that the stomach doesn't eat itself. And then we also have this protein digesting enzyme that's secreted called pepsin. And pepsin is only activated at a low pH or a strong acidic level. And so the stomach is really about digesting proteins and assimilating minerals because we need that strong acidic level. And if we have that really strong acidic level, then we have a signal sent out of gastrin to the rest of the system that tells the rest of the system what to do. So this initial piece, after the whole thinking about preparing and chewing, is extremely crucial. We need to have this strong acidic level in the stomach. And I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with pH scales. This is not, I remember working with my clients and going through some of these presentations, this is not a scale of things that you want to consume necessarily. This just gives you an idea of these different items and their relative acidic level. So on a pH scale, the lower the number, the higher the acidic level, the higher the number, the lower the acidic level, or the higher the alkalinity. And so stomach is supposed to be at a pH of about 1.5 to 3.0. And when hydrochloric acid is excreted into the stomach, it's at a pH of about 0.8, which is almost pure acid. And if you see each one of these numbers here, like gastric acid compared to lemon juice is one number on this scale, but that's actually to the 10th power. All right, so these are exponential increases. And so at a pH of 0.8, that stomach acid would actually eat through a tile floor if you were able to pour it onto a floor, because that's how acidic it is. It's like, something out of Aliens or something. If I had my stomach, pour onto the linoleum or something like that. So it's meant to be really, really, really acidic. Now, the purpose of this strong acidity is it's our first line of defense with the outside world. So anything that we consume and that we put into our stomach, the body needs to understand that anything going past that point has the potential to get assimilated and cross the intestinal barrier. And so that strong acidic level is going to bathe the stomach, it's going to disinfect the stomach, and then it's also going to help us kill pathogens, because a lot of these pathogens are going to be protein-based. So I mentioned before that there is this protein digesting enzyme called pepsin that's secreted into the stomach. And so when pepsin is secreted into the stomach, it's actually in an inactive form. And in the presence of this strong acidic level or this low pH, pepsin is then activated and it can start to act on these different proteins that are in the stomach. And the reason that the body is set up that way is because if pepsin was active as it was being excreted through the stomach wall, it would actually digest the stomach wall. And so it's inactive, and then it gets activated only at a certain level of pH or a certain acidic level. And the purpose for pepsin, again, is to break down proteins. Now, while we're interested in the strong acidic levels because we want to break down proteins that we're eating, but we also want to break down pathogens that we don't want to get into the rest of our system. If we have a weak acidic signal and we don't activate pepsin to the degree that we need to, then we're letting some of those pathogens down into the rest of our system. And so if we think about digestive dysfunction, this is what we see a lot of people out there do. And if we're not really mindful about it, we can also slip into some of these habits ourselves. Most people don't think about food before they eat it. Most people are grabbing food on the go, and they're inhaling their food. You know, I mean, a lot of times we're doing some kind of a drive-through or going through a quick salad bar or something like that. You know, we mentioned before, ideally you'd be prepping this food on your own, but most people are grabbing it, going it, and then, you know, when they're eating their food, they're inhaling it because they have a short lunch break or some kind of a short break where they can actually eat something. And so they're not chewing their food really well. They have these huge globs of food that go down to the rest of the system that are not pre-chewed, and they're also not mixed properly with salivary amylase. And so you're not breaking down your carbohydrates properly. And then you have these huge food particles that enter the stomach. And the most the stomach can do is actually churn a little bit. So the stomach doesn't have any teeth. And when we have this big globule of food go down into the rest of the system, you know, it causes a lot of different problems because we're not fully digesting it, and we haven't activated salivary amylase to start to break down simple carbohydrates. Now, another problem for people that aren't in our real food realm is that a lot of the foods that we're consuming are odorless when wrapped, and then when we open them, they're synthetically engineered to have, you know, smells that seem to be appetizing to us. And a lot of them are so soft that you don't even really have to chew it. They're like pre-gooed so that you can actually just, you know, devour these things really, really fast. And the problem is you're skipping a lot of these digestive processes that we want to initiate. All right, so now we have this bolus that is unchewed, unmoistened, has unpredigested carbs that goes into the stomach. So we haven't gotten the right signaling for the stomach to secrete acidity to the degree that it needs to. And so we don't have hydrochloric acid excreted into the stomach in adequate quantities. The contents in the stomach aren't disinfected. We don't have pepsin activated to the degree that we need it to, so proteins are not properly digested. And because we didn't have that whole saliva excreted with the salivary amylase to the degree that we needed to, a lot of the carbohydrates are not digested properly, which means that those carbohydrates start to feed some opportunistic gut flora in the rest of our system. And opportunistic means ones that we don't really want feeding down there. And then we also have a weak signal sent out to the rest of the system, which means that a lot of the other processes aren't going to happen in the right way. So if we think about things, you know, one of the most prevalent digestive issues that we see is acid reflux or heartburn. And I remember when we were going through our NTP course, I think Pepsid HC had just sponsored the Super Bowl. And for, you know, something like that to sponsor the Super Bowl, that means they got to be making a lot of money. And I remember back in the day when I was having all my different digestive issues, I was taking Zantac every day, you know, just so that I could eat food. And I think that we're told in most circles that acid indigestion is an indication that you have too much acid in the stomach. But really what happens is we have not enough acid in the stomach, and that causes a lot of problems because people aren't eating the right foods and they're not doing this proper preparation thing. So if I eat food and I don't do it the right way, like we talked about before, I don't prep my own food, it's not real food, I'm not chewing it really well, I'm not getting that salivary amylase, and it's not a nice paste going down into the rest of the system, I haven't primed the rest of the system. And so what happens is we have this valve called the pyloric valve. And the pyloric valve is only supposed to open when the contents of the stomach have been properly acidified. And when the contents of the stomach have reached a certain pH level, a high acidic level or a low pH, then the pyloric valve will open up and let that go through the rest of the system. But the problem is if we're not eating the right foods and we're not doing this proper preparation in the beginning and not chewing our food properly, we don't have that strong acidic level. And the pyloric valve backs up everything. and it pretty much just says, you know, hey, I'm not going to let this go down into the rest of the system because it has not been properly acidified. There's probably pathogens in it. And so in our innate intelligence, this thing puts a hold on the rest of the processes. And then all the contents of the stomach start to ferment, because you think about, you have this really nice, warm, wet environment. They start to ferment and putrefy. And then we start to get this action that feels like something pushing up on our esophagus. And it's any acid that comes up into the esophagus from the stomach, even if it's not properly acidified, is still going to feel acidic in the esophagus. And so that's where heartburn typically comes from. We've kind of put a hold on the digestive processes because there's not enough acid in the stomach, and we don't have the proper signaling for everything to move forward. And so everything gets put on hold. So the big takeaway for digestion, and this is just a really, really brief recap, is that number one, we want to make sure that we eat real food. And I have a summary of real food right here. I'm just going to breeze through it. Number one, we do want to eat animal meats. We'll talk a little bit about the importance of eating protein in animal meats here in just a moment. And ideally, these are naturally raised meats and wild-caught seafood and pastured poultry, a lot of organ meats, and then ideally some eggs here and there. And then also we want to make sure that we're consuming the right healthy fats, which includes butter, coconut oil, olive oil for salads, and then if you can get your hands on some quality animal fats like lard and tallow, those are great. And then also avocados here and there are awesome. Eating nutrient-dense vegetables such as cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower and asparagus. These happen to be all the ingredients of what we call our Bobar salad. It's a nutrient-dense salad versus eating nutrient-deplete plant foods like lettuce and things like that. And then also we advocate eating safe starches, which in our world includes sweet potatoes, yams, a little bit of white rice, some white potatoes, and then some ancestral tubers like taro root, plantains, and cassava root. And then also consuming full-fat dairy products if you tolerate it. And our favorite full-fat dairy products are going to be cheeses, yogurts, and creams. So when you start to eat real food, that process in and of itself starts to fix digestion. I can remember back in the day when I was taking Zantac every day and I just made the switch to eating real food, not really understanding how to time my macros. Everything started to fix itself within a few weeks. And I mean, that was just like, it was freedom for me. It was great. Another takeaway for the digestive system is you want to make sure that you're preparing your own meals more often than not. And then through preparation, understanding that when you see it and you smell it and you're doing that whole process, you start to initiate all these other digestive processes. And one thing that I like to do is I want to acknowledge when I start to salivate, because salivation is an indication that the rest of the system is getting primed. Now, if you're not making your own food at home, because a lot of us have to prep food and then take it with us, then it's still a really good idea after you heat it up to open it up and smell it and just take a moment to initiate those different processes. And taking some time to just kind of almost like honor your food for a little bit. And then also we'd recommend, especially if you have digestive issues, to cook most of your food or at least lightly steam it, especially your plant matter, because cooking is going to start to break down a lot of these things that the body might have a hard time digesting. So if you have a weak digestive system, we'd recommend cooking just about everything. Cooking pre-breaks down foods. It breaks down the cellular fibrous walls in plant matter, and it gives your body access to all those different nutrients. And then also with proteins, we start to open up the proteins and break down the molecules and denature them in a way that gives us access to a lot of the nutrients that we're trying to get access to. And then also a big takeaway is, and we've heard this probably from our parents, definitely from our great-grandparents and grandparents, make sure that when you eat, you sit down and you eat in a calm and relaxed state, because the digestive process inside our body needs to be in a parasympathetic autonomic nervous system mode in order for all the digestive sphincters to open and also for all the digestive juices to flow. All right, so I think most of us have probably heard about the terms rest and digest and fight or flight. So if I'm in a fight or flight state, which means if I'm in a stressed out state, I shut down all my digestive processes. And so in order for those things to flow properly, I need to be in a calm and relaxed state. So it's really not a good idea to be eating on your feet or to be eating on the go, because if I'm on my feet, I'm giving my body a signal of me doing something besides being calm and relaxed. If I'm sitting down, especially if I'm sitting on the ground, I kind of trick my body into being in a parasympathetic autonomic nervous system mode. And so we'd recommend making sure that you're always seated while you're eating. Because if you're seated, then to the body, that means that there's obviously no danger. Otherwise, I'd be up on my feet. And something that good to do before eating, I'd recommend if you feel like you're always stressed out and eating on the go, maybe take a moment, like a minute to count your pulse or a minute to count your breaths, and that would get you into a really calm and relaxed state. And then also saying grace before meals is going to be a really, really great idea. And we always like to say grace anyway, because we like to acknowledge all the different energies and things that went into the food that got prepared, and we feel like it helps with assimilation too. And then after eating, I think we've probably heard this, as children especially, make sure that you stay calm and relaxed after eating. Make sure that you're working out on an empty stomach. So if I go into a workout, I definitely don't want to have anything up in my upper GI, because I'm asking my body to try to digest food and also to try to work out at the same time. When you work out, we recommend working out on an empty stomach. So we recommend giving yourself at least 3 hours of space before your last meal and the next time that you work out, so that you can let most of the food move from the upper GI down to the rest of the system. And we definitely want to think about boosting hydrochloric acid and acidity inside the stomach naturally. So I can't tell you how many people come to us with digestive issues and we find out that it's a low stomach acid issue. So I think one of the problems that we see with a lot of people that don't know our information yet is that we've all been kind of brainwashed over the past 40 or 50 years to think that meat is bad for us and that it causes all kinds of different problems. But meat's ancestral. We've been eating meat ever since our existence. And when I eat meat, I force my body to learn how to digest meat. So if I'm eating meat on a regular basis, I have to have a strong acidic level in order to digest that meat properly. Because remember, we need that strong acidic level to activate pepsin, and pepsin is what digests proteins. Now, if I've gone through a phase of not eating meat because I think it causes cancer and cholesterol issues and all these different things that we hear about, then I lose my capacity to digest meat. This is also a reason that we see a lot of people that stop eating meat, that try to come back to eating meat, that feel uncomfortable eating meat, and they feel like it doesn't resonate with their body, or their body feels uncomfortable, or they have digestive issues. It's not because meat's bad for them, it's because they've lost their capacity to actually digest meat. So the way that we resolve this is we make sure that we eat meat on a regular basis, and if that feels uncomfortable for you, then you can start with small amounts, because the body will start to get the signal of what it needs to digest. It's just amazing how intelligent the body's innate intelligence is. When you start to introduce some of these foods, the body starts to adapt, and sometimes you have to take that slow. So we'd recommend eating meat in balance with all our other real foods that we recommend. And we recommend doing that on a regular basis. And if you go through a phase of not having meat for a significant period of time, you may need to reintroduce this stuff very slowly and in small amounts, and just make sure that you're chewing your food really well. Something that you can do to boost your hydrochloric acid production or your acidic level in your stomach naturally is, first thing in the morning, you can take a little bit of water with a squeeze of lemon and a couple of tablespoons of raw apple cider vinegar, and that will start to kickstart your HCl production in your stomach for the day. And this is like a traditional holistic remedy for having low stomach acid. We're also really big fans of using digestive support, and we've used a lot of different therapeutic grade supplement companies over the past few years, and we really love Biotics Research's Hydrozyme as an entry-level upper GI kind of strengthening acidic level product. So Hydrozyme contains a low dose of hydrochloric acid. It also contains some pepsin and then some other things that facilitate strong digestion in the upper GI. And if there was one product that would be the product of our private practice and of our group programs, it would be this Hydrozyme product. Because when people start to take this Hydrozyme and they increase their upper GI acidity, if they were having constipation issues, all of a sudden things start to flow. If they were having diarrhea issues, all of a sudden things start to tighten up a little bit. Definitely if they were having acid reflux or heartburn, like that goes away almost immediately. And when you're taking something like this, you know that you're digesting your food a little bit better because things feel just a little bit different. So we're really, really huge fans of supporting upper GI acidity with supplementation. And then something else that you can do is you can also, for symptomatic relief, use essential oils. So We're big into essential oils, especially as using them for replacements for over-the-counter medication. It's funny because our office is almost like this little kind of medicine witch doctor office. Someone comes down here with a migraine or they have a digestive issue, and we break out our oils. And I'd say the best oils to use for digestive issues is going to be Digest Zen, peppermint, and ginger. And for each one of those, you can take them internally, which will be a really, really strong signal to the system. But you can also rub those on the areas of the stomach or the digestive system that feel like you're having a little bit of discomfort. And I'm telling you, like for most people that use these, it's almost immediate relief. So what we'd like to do is for anyone that's on the live call right now, if you just type in, if you comment something, we're going to acknowledge that. Maybe comment digestive support or digestive essential oil. We're going to do a drawing at the end of this for some Digest Zen and some ginger that we're going to give away. All right. Now I'm going to take a moment and pause because this is the summary of the digestive system before we get into the microbiome and gut permeability. And I want to see if we have any questions. Nicole, we got any questions? All right, so we're going to keep moving along here. If I see any important questions, I'm sure Nicole will hit me up with them. All right, so that's a summary of the digestive system and the things that we need to do to support the digestive system. So let's talk about the gut and the microbiome. And when we talk about microbiome, we are talking about microorganisms. We have about 10 times more bacteria than human cells in the body. And most of our body weight is actually other organisms, which is just fascinating to understand. Ideally, we have about 500 different beneficial species inside of our gut flora. And I say ideally or theoretically because a lot of us have lost those beneficial species through not eating the right foods. And a lot of times not eating the right foods is not your fault because we've been told a lot of crazy things over the years. Yes, hydrozyme is safe for pregnancy, but you definitely want to start at the minimal dose, when we do our dosing protocol that we talk about. So great question. All right, so for the microbiome, there's a lot of living organisms inside of us. And the key to having a healthy microbiome is going to be having a good terrain. And what we mean by a good terrain is you want to facilitate the beneficial bacteria living inside your system with a healthy body. So I think one of the big misunderstandings with microbiome and beneficial bacteria is that we need to take all these different beneficial bacteria to populate our gut with those beneficial bacteria. And really, the most important thing to facilitate a beneficial gut microbiome is going to be making sure that you have the terrain that supports those things living inside you. And the way that we do that is with the things that we've already talked about before, which means eating real food, structuring your daily eating appropriately. And we also recommend making sure that you address what we call our foundations for health, which is getting your sleep patterns in place and making sure that you're meditating regularly and getting outdoors and spending some time in the sun. And all these different things are going to facilitate a healthy microbiome. So if you were to do all these things that are good for your health without ever taking a probiotic or ever eating fermented foods, your body would naturally start to repopulate this microbiome because it's taking inputs from the environment and it's taking the ones that it needs and that it resonates with, and it's not letting the bad ones get in. And again, this is assuming that you have a healthy terrain. So I'd say the most important thing in having a healthy gut is making sure that you're eating the right foods, you're structuring your eating appropriately, and that you're facilitating better sleep and all these things that we know are crucial for optimal health. Now, another thing that we can do to help facilitate a good, healthy microbiome is making sure that we're eating carbohydrates on a regular basis. I know that low carb and keto are these really hot topics nowadays, and we think it's perfectly fine to bounce in and out of low carb and bounce in and out of something that looks like keto here and there. But over the long term, you want to make sure that you have, and I'm sure a lot of us have heard of this term, prebiotics. We want to make sure that we have a lot of carbohydrates that have these beneficial nutrients that our microbiome needs to feed off of. So they need to come from the right sources and have fermentable fibers in them. And if you're eating real food sources of carbohydrates, then you're automatically getting those nutrients inside the system. So eating what we call safe starches, which include sweet potatoes, yams, things like plantains and taro roots, and then also healthy fruits are going to be extremely beneficial. You don't have to eat those things every day. If you feel like you do a little bit better lower carb, you can moderate that. You can measure it. I'd say maybe like a half a cup of those things in the evening is going to be beneficial. But if you're eating real food and you're also eating carbohydrates punctuated here and there, then you are giving your microbiome a lot of stuff to feed on. I think one of the things that the low carb movement and the keto movement kind of miss is that if you stay low carb or keto for too long, you're not feeding your beneficial bacteria in your microbiome properly, so you start to lose your ability to facilitate those things living inside of you. So Ashley asked a question about doTERRA's Terrazyme. I do like doTERRA's Terrazyme, except that it's such a low dose of HCl that we'd recommend maybe taking the Terrazyme for the beneficial enzymes, and then also taking something like Hydrozyme along with it. And it depends on how wrecked your digestive system is. So that's a really, really great question. Thank you so much, Ashley. Awesome. So also, again, to facilitate a healthy microbiome, we need to make sure that we have strong upper GI acidity. And remember why we want that. It's not just about digesting the meats that we're eating, it's also about digesting pathogens before they get down into the rest of the system. So if I don't have strong upper GI acidity, I'm not activating pepsin and I'm not digesting the pathogens before they get into the rest of my system. And if that happens, then I'm allowing things down into my gut that I don't want to, and they start to populate the gut versus the things that we want. So the things that we want actually survive in a strong acidic environment. The things that we don't want typically aren't going to survive that strong acidity. So here we revisit again, like the importance of this strong upper GI acidity. Now, something else that can be extremely beneficial is going to be consuming fermented foods. And I wish I could do this little bouncing back and forth between a video with me and then also this presentation, but Facebook Live won't let me do that. But I have some things on display here that I was hoping to show everybody. I'm a big fan of kefir. I've been experimenting with this for about a month now, and I think that either goat kefir or cow kefir is going to be great, because even if you're lactose intolerant, these kefirs have been fermented so well that they've actually fermented out most of the lactose. And so there's a couple of different brands that we like. I have a picture of one up here called Lifeway. But there's another one, I can't remember what the name is, but I'll send that out as part of the bonus material. I drink about 3 to 6 swigs of this every day with my bone stock. I know that probably sounds gross, but I just try to get certain things in at certain times a day. And then also, if you tolerate it, eating things like a good quality yogurt, full fat yogurt, it's going to give you some beneficial microorganisms. And then fermented foods, your own fermented foods like fermented kimchi and sauerkraut and other fermented vegetables are going to be powerhouses when it comes to getting these beneficial microorganisms inside your system. So understand that when we're eating these fermented foods, again, it's not really about repopulating your system. It's really about balancing that ecosystem inside your system. And so the more of these fermented foods that I can consume and the more that I facilitate a really good terrain, the more that the balance is going to sway on the side of the good guys versus the bad guys. And so eating these things punctuated is going to be extremely beneficial. Now, we'd also recommend, as an experiment, and everyone's going to resonate with these things a little bit differently, is that you want to cycle through different probiotic strains. And you know, there's a lot of, if you go into PubMed or one of these scholarly article hubs where you can actually search for different scholarly articles based on different search terms, you can pull up a lot of different information about probiotics, prebiotics, which strains are beneficial. Most of the companies that have any kind of history with them know which strains are going to be beneficial, and so they're all going to have their different formulations for these. And so what we recommend is cycling through different products. What I'd recommend is starting again with Biotics Research's BioDoff 7. It's got a lot of beneficial strains and it's therapeutic dose. And so we recommend going through an entire bottle of one product before moving on to a new product. And so my favorite cycle is going to be this BioDoff 7 Plus that we sell in our office. And then once you get through an entire bottle of that, give yourself a break for a little bit. And then we have another product that we sell called Gut Pro. And Gut Pro is a great product, but it's really strong. We've seen people have some pretty significant reactions to it if they didn't start with something like BioDoff 7 first. But if you make it through the BioDoff 7 and you notice your digestive system improve, then you can move on to something that's a little bit more strong like this Gut Pro. And we love this Gut Pro. And then you can move on to some things that are a little bit more soil-based microorganisms. So we love this product called Prescript Assist, and it's something that we recommend people getting on Amazon. The same company that makes that Gut Bro product actually have a primal soil product, which has some a very similar profile to the Prescript Assist. But I would not introduce those soil-based organisms until you've gone through these initial phases, because some people's digestive systems just can't handle it because they're really, really strong. All right, so when it comes to supplementation with probiotics, you can definitely experiment, but you know, we've done the research on which strains are going to be most beneficial, and we've settled on some of these companies and products that you're probably not going to see in mainstream grocery stores, because you do want something that has a broad spectrum of strains, and you also want to have a certain level of potency, or else you're just really not doing yourself any good. All right. And then something else that's extremely important to do. So if you're facilitating a good terrain inside your system, if you're eating real food to the degree that you can, and you're doing all the things that we've talked about up to this point, the best way to get the beneficial microorganisms inside your system is to spend time outdoors. And when you're outdoors in an environment that's pristine, and I'm not talking about your lawn that's been sprayed with glyphosate and like other, you know, like weed killer type stuff. We're talking about when you go hiking at Red Rock, or you go hiking at Mount Charleston or Zion, or somewhere that's out in some kind of a pristine environment. Make sure that you get your hands down in some dirt, and ideally I would say touch your face. You don't have to eat the dirt, but I like to put my hands in the dirt and kind of shake my hands and dust them off a little bit, and then I like to kind of wipe my face so that I know that I'm breathing in those microorganisms and getting them inside my system. So what we find from research today is that the organisms that are inside our gut are not so much related to the probiotics that we take in the fermented foods, but it's more about the environment that we put ourselves in, as long as we have a healthy terrain inside our body. All right, so I would say that this is as important or even more important than focusing on taking some kind of a probiotic supplement. All right. And then also, we've all heard the connection about stress and your digestive system. And so you have to acknowledge and understand that if I'm in a stressed out state all the time, it's very difficult for my digestive system to work the right way, because in a fight or flight state, all the intestinal sphincters shut down, and those stress responses also don't facilitate the growth of these beneficial microorganisms. So if you feel like you're stressed out on a regular basis, you need to find ways to manage that stress. And we'd recommend things like meditation and mindfulness practices, which is one of the things that we teach in our program. But you know, if you're doing all the things right, you're eating real food and you're doing everything that we talked about up to this point, and you're still having some kind of digestive issues, then you have to consider that stress might be one of the things that's messing you up. All right, other things that wreck the gut. So antibiotics and other medications, birth control, NSAIDs, you know, ibuprofen, Aleve, all these things do not facilitate a healthy terrain. If you go on a round of antibiotics, especially, you need to implement these different microbiome protocols that we just talked about. If you eat a lot of highly refined carbohydrates, a lot of sugar, and a lot of processed foods, you're giving your body the things that those opportunistic pathogenic gut flora are going to feed off of, versus the holistic real food-based versions of those carbohydrates. And then diets low in fermentable fibers, especially low carb or keto for too long, is not going to be giving your system the fermentable carbohydrates that it needs. And then toxins like wheat, we'd say avoid wheat at all costs. It doesn't matter how it comes or where it comes from. And then things like toxic seed oils are going to be a big problem for the digestive system. And then anything that contributes to leaky gut is not going to facilitate a healthy terrain for this microbiome. Other things that wreck the gut are going to be, like we talked about, chronic stress, chronic infections. If you had some parents that didn't eat real food or didn't know the things that we know now, you know, they pass on certain gut flora, certain microbiome to their offspring. Also, having natural birth is extremely important, because as you go through the birth canal, you absorb and take on a lot of the mother's beneficial bacteria and microbiome. And so if you were someone that was born through a C-section, no fault of your own, then that could have set you up for not having that proper terrain and that proper microbiome. So those are things that you just need to consider and think about. If you've been exposed to any of these things that we just mentioned, or if any of this stuff applies to you, that would be all the more reason to make sure that you make a focus on restoring and healing your microbiome. All right, so let's just talk a quick moment about gut permeability. And leaky gut has been something that's been really popular and talked a lot about in mainstream circles, especially in the holistic realm. This is a graphic pulled from Dr. Axe's website, and I like a lot of the graphical information that he puts out. But when we talk about leaky gut or gut permeability, inside our digestive system, and specifically inside the small intestine, we have what we call tight junctions. And these tight junctions are designed to keep the wrong things out and to allow the right things through. And ideally, those right things are going to be beneficial nutrients that our body and systems need. And so that's very, very tightly regulated. That's why we call them tight junctions. And so these tight junctions are only going to open up to facilitate the transfer of beneficial nutrients, but then also there's certain things that contribute to gut permeability that's going to open up these tight junctions a little bit wider than we need them to, and sometimes for a little bit longer period of time. So you can imagine, our digestive system from our mouth to our anus is one long tube, and this is our interaction with the outside environment. And so we have to be very, very careful about the things that we let cross that boundary. And so that's why it's tightly regulated, but there are things that can contribute to the opening of these tight junctions for a longer period of time and a little bit wider than necessary. So some of these things that are going to contribute to that, number one, we want to make sure that we heal and seal the gut by eating real food. So real food is going to facilitate having a strong and healthy gut and also having a really tightly regulated tight junction. Also, some things that you can add to the mix are going to be some gut healing nutrients and supplements. So there's something that we have experimented with, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard before, is this product called Restore. And this helps facilitate really strong tight junctions. This is not something that we sell out of our office just yet, but there are several places that you can get it. You can get it on their main website, but there's also some local deals and buys things that you can get that through. Bone stock or bone broth has been known for a very long time to heal and seal the gut. It's something that's used pretty significantly in the gut and psychology syndrome protocols, which is the GAPS protocol. And so consuming bone stock, especially on an empty stomach when the stomach is kind of healing itself anyway, is going to help to heal and seal the gut. And then we recommend that if you're a real foodie to the core, that you go through some periods of what we call a cleanse, which might look like an autoimmune protocol. And so this cleanse is going to be eliminating nuts and seeds, legumes, and dairy for a short period of time just to see if your digestive symptoms improve a little bit. And then one of the final things I want to talk about before moving on is going to be this whole tight junction thing. So one of the things that contributes to the opening of these tight junctions in a way that we don't want is going to be gluten and gliadin. And gliadin is a protein found in wheat as well. And so gluten and gliadin in every human being, whether you feel like you experience symptoms from it or not, are going to open up the tight junctions, because in the presence of gluten or gliadin, the tight junctions are going to, or the digestive system is going to release zonulin, which is designed to flush out the gluten. It's like it detects the presence of this thing that is not optimal, and it tries to flush it out. And in that flushing, it opens up the tight junctions wider and for a longer period of time than we need it to. So one of the things that we'd recommend avoiding at all costs is going to be gluten and any kind of wheat-based products. All right, so one thing I want to touch on before we move on and close the presentation is our SHT Holistic Health Journey membership. And the reason that I bring this up right now is simply because a lot of the things that we've talked about here, how to structure your daily eating, what is real food, how to sleep, how to meditate, how to get outdoors, the importance of all these different things, we tie it together in a program that we call the Superhuman Transformation, and we abbreviate it SHT. So we have one of these kicking off at the first of the year on January 13th. We have limited spots for it. And to make this a little bit more cost effective for people, because in the past, one of the things that inhibited people from joining was the high price tag for the SHT by itself. Usually an SHT is going to cost anywhere from $360 to $450, or sometimes a little bit higher. And so we've designed this monthly membership so that you can have access to all of our programming for a year at a nominal monthly fee. So in our program, we address what we call our foundations for health. And our foundations for health are listed up here on the screen. That includes real food, setting circadian rhythms, which is basically aligning your biological rhythms with the rising and setting of the sun so that you can have proper hormonal balance and proper sleep patterns. We get into meditation and mindfulness, grounding and being outdoors, Functional fitness, we recommend. We don't train in the program, but we do have partnerships with local gyms, and we love the CrossFit Combine, which is our home base up here. So we try to get everyone that we can to experience functional fitness at its best through this gym here. And then we also talk about providing yourself and your family with natural solutions for the home that are non-toxic alternatives to over-the-counter medications, cleaning detergents, and things like that. And then we're big on community, and we feel like these are all the things that tie into making someone feel amazing. So we have an SHT program by itself, but we also have this monthly membership, which we feel like is the way to go for most people because it's very cost effective. As part of one of the bonus handouts that we're going to email all the attendees for this webinar, we're going to send you a PDF that summarizes all the different benefits of the Holistic Health membership and what the SHT entails. So you see here, there's 2 pages loaded with information about all the different things that you're going to get from our membership. So the membership, it's a monthly fee. The standard rate is going to be about $49 a month for local people, $39 a month for an online membership, and that's an annual contract. And that comes with all the different things that you see listed on the screen. So we have some of our foundational programs and workshops. This includes a 10-week SHT, but then you also have access to a lot of our services at a discount and a bunch of bonus material that we offer throughout the year. So for someone coming into this right now, because we have early bird pricing specials, if you go to superhumantransformation.com, you're going to see some information on early bird pricing. And if you type in early bird SHT on checkout, you'll get that early bird pricing. And right now we're at the lowest pricing that we have available. And so as a non-SHT veteran or Combine member, all the way up until the 17th, if you enter early bird SHT, you're only going to pay $39 a month versus the $49 a month. But you can also get access to an a la carte SHT, which is standard $489 at only $369. All right, so we're really excited about this membership because it gives everyone access to a lot of our services at a nominal monthly fee, which we feel like was a big barrier for people in the past. And again, if you just go to superhumantransformation.com and use that promo code, that's going to be good up until the 17th, where price is going to change. Now, if we tie all that stuff together that we talked about today, and that was a really, really quick run through of all this information. Remember, we talked about strong digestion. We talked about the digestive process. We also talked about a healthy microbiome and gut permeability. So what we'd like to do is offer you some bonus PDF handouts, and these are what the handouts are going to entail. So number one, we're going to give you our 5 food groups and our foods to eliminate, which is our definition of real food and the things that you need to take out of your diet. We're going to give you our upper GI acidity strengthening protocol, which includes some at-home kind of holistic protocols, but then also our supplementation recommendations. We have a handout we call Smart Digestive Habits, which takes you through that whole process of the north to south process, and it also includes some other remedies that we can use for better digestive efforts. We're also going to have a handout that has Eat Fermented Foods and the progression that we recommend people eating those different fermented foods. And then we also have our supplement protocol for prebiotics and probiotics. And then as a bonus in all that material, we're also going to have my personal routine that I'm using right now, which includes like when I go outside, how often I go outside and get my hands dirty and rub my face and that kind of stuff. So to get this bonus information, all you have to do is message me at my Facebook page, which is where you're at right now. You can message the word, once you initiate that chat, message the word bonus, and then you'll have a little interaction, and we'll add you to our little list, and we'll be sending those documents out by Sunday. All right? So we should have, if we had some people commenting, some drawings for some essential oils, and then also we have all these PDF bonus handouts that we're going to be sending out. So all you have to do is, again, initiate a chat, type in the word bonus in that chat system, and then it will prompt you to submit your email, and we'll get that information to you this weekend. All right, so really hate that I wasn't able to get on camera and for you guys to see me. I was hoping to bounce back and forth between the camera and between the presentation, but I know this was useful information, a lot of information at once, depending on how this information was received. We may end up breaking this up and doing a few more episodes of this and trying to dial in just a little bit more. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment right now. I'm going to stick on just for a little bit and see if Nicole hits me up with any questions. Thank you for the opportunity. I love doing this kind of stuff. I love putting this information out there.